Good afternoon, Olive, Arlo, and Frank. Grandpop coming to you from the living room in Jacksonville Beach. And today we're going to be looking at, a couple things. Right now we're looking at the Jacksonville Beach Pier. This was just rebuilt this year. It opened, I think, in April of this year. At first it was free. Now they charge like $5 to walk out to the end of it. Very nice view out there. Very good fishing out there too. I can't wait to get back fishing again. I may fish here a couple times, but usually I fish in the surf. So this is surf fishing to a new level. And you see those guys wheeling their cart out there. They're fishermen. Because you can't cast that far out to the end of that pier. Now some people are using drones to take the hook out and try and drop it. I'd be afraid that I'd catch something really big. And I'd be stuck with something really big on the beach. I don't want to catch something that can eat me. But we're also going to be looking at chapter 17 of Matthew. And in this we're going to see something called the Transfiguration. Very, very interesting. And one of my favorite passages of scripture. Oh, good. We have a commercial. Lucky us. Let's skip that. Get back to the pier. The Transfiguration is one of my favorite passages of scripture. And then we're going to see the disciples attempt to heal somebody. And they've been given the power from time to time to heal. And we're going to see what happens when they try to heal. Then we're going to see, it says here, the second prediction of Jesus' death and resurrection. But really, it's Jesus telling them. So he's not predicting it. It's like, yeah, this is going to happen. He's telling them it's going to happen. See, if I tell you that something's going to happen in the future, even if I wind up being right, I'm predicting it because I don't know. Now, if I'm a prophet, it might be God telling me that it's happening. So there's that. But it's not like Jesus telling you. Jesus is saying, this is what's going to happen to me. And God lives in the past, the present, and the future. He created those things. He didn't just create the land that we stand on. He created everything, the environment, space and time, the whole thing, every dimension in physics. He created all that. And then the temple tax. If you remember, I used to be a tax collector for the IRS, so I'm always interested in the passages about taxation. And Matthew, if you recall, was a tax collector. He was a publican. So 17 verse 1 says, 6 days later, Jesus took with him Peter, James, and John, the brother of James, and led them privately up a mountain. So he takes three of them. And they're the three main ones, Peter, James, and John. And he's saying that John is the brother of James, and led them privately up a high mountain. And he was transfigured before them. So transfigured means he was turned into something else. His face shone like the sun, and his clothes became white as light. Now when Moses came down from the mountain, his face shone. Now, if I recall, his clothes were white, but they were white when he went up there. At least in the movie, they were white. Then Moses and Elijah also appeared before them, talking with him. So now, and these guys have been dead for like, one of them for hundreds of years and one of them for like 1,000 years. They've been dead, but there they are. They represent that Moses is the law. He was the one that gave the law from God to the children of Israel. And then Elijah represents the prophets. So it's how to live your life in the present, the law, and how to live your life into the future. That's the prophets. So they represent that. So you would think that the disciples would be like, oh, crap. But let's see, Peter is going to say this. So Peter said to Jesus, Lord, it is good for us to be here. So they have Jesus who's transfigured, he's transformed into this like radiant being. He's him with the glory of God showing in him. And he has resurrected Moses and Elijah. But Peter doesn't think, oh, it's good that they're here. Or what I'd be thinking is, oh, Lord, I'm glad you're here. But he goes, oh, it's good that we're here. If you want, I will make 3 shelters. One for you, one for Moses, and one for Elijah. Now they're talking about sukkahs. There's a fall festival called Sukkot when Jewish people bring in the harvest over in Israel. And they build these sukkahs, these little huts in their backyards. And they commemorate them building the little lean-tos out in the desert that they lived in for 40 years while they wandered aimlessly in the desert. Well, aimlessly for them, but not for God. So it commemorates that. It's the Feast of Shelters. So he's going, I mean, he's coming from a good place. He said, oh, it's great that we're here because we can build these sukkahs for you. While he was still speaking, so interrupting him, a bright cloud overshadowed them, and a voice from the cloud said, This is my one dear Son, in whom I take great delight. Listen to him. So that's the voice of God. God the Father. Boom. Shut up. Listen to Jesus. And that's always good advice. Just shut up and listen to Jesus. Your whole life. If you shut up and listen to Jesus, you'll do just fine. When the disciples heard this, they were overwhelmed with fear and threw themselves down with their faces to the ground. But Jesus came and touched them. Get up, he said. Do not be afraid. When they looked up, all they saw was Jesus alone. I don't know why this happened, but man, I'm glad it's here in the Bible. It answers a lot of questions. Like all these people who died before us, we're going to see them again. The ones who are in heaven, we're going to see again. And Jesus is saying, don't be afraid. Don't be afraid of all this. You're with me. And as my dad said, just shut up and listen to me. As they were coming down from the mountain, Jesus commanded them, do not tell anyone about the vision until the Son of Man is raised from the dead. The disciples asked him, why then do the experts in the law say that Elijah must come first? He answered, Elijah does indeed come first and will restore all things. And today, in Jewish families, they have Passover, the Pesach, at the Pesach meal at Passover every year. And they read from something called the Seder. It's a beautiful ceremony. And they keep a chair there that nobody's allowed to sit in. It's for Elijah. Because they believe that Elijah's going to come before the Messiah. So what's he saying? Elijah does indeed come first and will restore all things. And I tell you that Elijah has already come. Yet they did not recognize him, but did to him whatever they wanted. In the same way, the Son of Man will suffer at their hands. Then the disciples understood that he was speaking to them about John the Baptist, who came in the spirit of Elijah. When they came to the crowd, a man came to him, knelt down, and said, "Lord, have mercy on my son, because he has seizures and suffers terribly, for he often falls into the fire and into the water." Now, this is saying that when he has these seizures, that if he's there and there's a fire, whatever it is, in the fireplace or in outside there's a campfire, like he goes into the fire, like throws himself into the fire and throws himself into the water. So this isn't just a physical seizure. This sounds like a mental illness that would cause you to do this. And this fellow's distraught. I'm sure this kid is disfigured. You got to watch him all the time. He can't be around fire or water. It must be hard to give this kid a bath. And you don't know how old he is. Maybe he's a 40-year-old man. I brought him to your disciples, but they were not able to heal him. Jesus answered, "You unbelieving and perverse generation, how much longer must I be with you? How much longer must I endure you? Bring him here to me." And now, this is interesting because he's talking to everybody, but he answered the guy. And so he's condemning the guy and you'll see the disciples. Then Jesus rebuked the demon, and it came out of him, and the boy was healed from that moment. Then the disciples came to Jesus privately and said, "Why couldn't we cast it out?" He told them, "It was because of your little faith. I tell you the truth. If you have faith the size of a mustard seed," it's a little tiny seed, "you will say to this mountain, 'Move from here to there,' and it will move. Nothing will be impossible for you." Now I want to say this. I've never seen somebody who had enough faith that they could move a mountain. Could it happen? I know Jesus could move a mountain, and he's filled with faith. I've never heard of anybody moving a mountain. This isn't telling you you can have anything you want. This isn't Alice's restaurant where you can get anything you want. This is in faith. And to be in faith, it has to be faith to Jesus. Like, you're not going to be asking for things to make your life better necessarily. Although you may. If you're suffering a disease and you say, "Jesus, cure me," you're asking him to make your life better. So I don't mean it that way. But it's not like, "I need a Mercedes, I need this, I need that." He's your dad, but he's different than your dad on earth. You can only ask him for what he wants you to have, and he'll give it to you. When they gathered together in Galilee, Jesus told them, "The Son of Man is going to be betrayed into the hands of men. They will kill him, and on the third day he will be raised." And they became greatly distressed. So this is where it said that he predicts his death for the second time. And I think the first time was the last chapter. He's not predicting it. He's telling them, boys, this is going to happen. And they're distressed. Distressed means they're dismayed. It has the word stress in it. Like you're stressed out. You're worried. But it's more than worry. Despair. After they arrived in Capernaum, and that's where he was staying for the most part, he didn't have a house. People weren't going like, "Hey, let's go over to Jesus' crib and hang out, drink some wine, and hang out with taxpayers or tax collectors and sinners." After they arrived in Capernaum, the collectors of the temple tax came to Peter and said, "Your teacher pays the double drachma tax, doesn't he?" He said, "Yes." So there was a tax that you had to pay to the temple. So this we're not talking about the Roman government. We're talking about the Jewish government, the religious government, the temple. And there were certain things that you had to do. You were supposed to tithe. You were supposed to go to festivals. You were supposed to sacrifice. And the priests got some of the sacrifices, but they could also levy taxes. And so this is a 2 drachma, and I don't know how much a drachma was worth, but it was enough that probably a lot of people didn't pay it or didn't want to pay it. People got in trouble for not paying it. And he asked Peter, and Peter's like, "Oh yeah, that's the ticket. Yeah, he pays that." I have a feeling Peter doesn't know whether he pays it. When Peter came into the house, Jesus spoke to him first. "What do you think, Simon? For whom do earthly kings collect tolls or taxes? From their sons or from foreigners?" After he said, "From foreigners," Jesus said to him, "Then the sons are free. But so that we don't offend them, go to the lake and throw out a hook." So Peter's a fisherman, if you remember. So he says, "Go fishing. Peter, you're going to pay the tax. Go fishing." And Peter's probably thinking like, "You want me to take these dudes to fish? It's drachma, it's not fish. Take the first fish that comes up, and when you open its mouth, you will find a 4 drachma coin." Oh, so it's, the double drachma must be 4. Take that and give it to them for me and you. Jesus is like, "Yeah, I'll pay my tax and I'll pay your tax." So next we're going to dive into chapter 18. We're going to see the disciples start to argue about who's the greatest amongst them. None of those guys seem very great to me. Then we're going to do another parable, the parable of the lost sheep. Then we're going to talk about relationship with Christians, sinning against other Christians. And then we're going to do another parable about the unforgiving slave. So anyway, Until then, kiddies, peace out.